Certain professional NFL teams seem to be consistently plagued by misfortune. Regardless of one's beliefs in curses or not, there are franchises that either perpetually struggle or make consistently disastrous decisions. While some of these teams on this list may have experienced some recent success, the assessment is based on the overall historic performance of the respective franchise. So today, let's talk about the 5 teams that I believe to be cursed. And we will begin this list by discussing the New York Jets. The New York Jets franchise started in 1963, and since that day, they've only won 1 Super Bowl championship, have only won 4 division championships, and have only made the playoffs 14 times. And in case you're wondering when those appearances were, well, their Super Bowl was in 1969, their AFL East division championships were in 1968 and in 1969, and their AFC East championship was in 1998 and most recently 2002. And this is the same franchise that has not made a playoff appearance since 2010. And ever since they moved to MetLife Stadium, they haven't even touched the playoffs. And it's not really for a lack of trying. At the end of the day, they've taken several top-tier quarterbacks in each draft. Because they've tried guys like Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, and now most recently, they're working with Aaron Rodgers. And the reason why they're so high on my list is due to the fact that with Aaron Rodgers, this team was poised to have an amazing season. Everyone thought this was supposed to be the year where the New York Jets not only won the division, but potentially made a run for the Super Bowl. With one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, a top-tier quarterback, a top-tier wide receiver, and a defensive-minded head coach, this was supposed to be the year where the New York Jets took over the NFL. But then, on the very first drive of the season, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles and Zach Wilson had to be put back into the game, and of course, Zach Wilson did not play very well. And this is one of those franchises that will do whatever it takes to win a championship, but just can never seem to get it right. Ever since Joe Namath, they haven't really had a consistent starting quarterback, and the only other ones they had were guys like Ken O'Brien, Richard Todd, Mark Sanchez, and Vinny Testaverde. When you think of historic franchises like the Green Bay Packers or the Dallas Cowboys or the 49ers who had consistent quarterback play throughout most of their glory years, you never really saw that with the New York Jets. Joe Namath, to this day, is their longest tenured quarterback with 136 games played. And since the 2000s, their 3 most played players were Chad Pennington with 69 games played, Vinny Testaverde with 65 games played, and Mark Sanchez with 62 games played. And all of those quarterbacks had slightly above average records. We obviously know that this team made it all the way to the AFC Championship game with Mark Sanchez, but ever since that day, it has been nothing but downhill ever since. Hopefully for the sake of New York Jets fans, that will change next season. Next up, we have somebody who's now currently in the division with them, the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have been in the National Football League since the 1970s and have actually seen a pretty decent amount of success. Since they joined the NFL, they've won 4 conference championships, they've won 11 AFC East championships, and they've made the playoffs a total of 19 times. However, with all that success, they have never won an NFL Super Bowl. Back in the 1990s, when Jim Kelly was their quarterback, they made 4 consecutive Super Bowl appearances, losing all 4 of them. In 1991, they had a 1-point loss to the New York Giants. In 1992, they had a 13-point loss to the Washington Redskins. In 1993, they had a blowout loss to the Dallas Cowboys with a score of 52-17. And then in 1994, they lost again to the Dallas Cowboys with a score of 30-13. So basically what I'm hearing is that the NFC East actually destroys the Buffalo Bills. And when you look in more recent years, since the year 2020, they have won the AFC East in 4 straight years. They have a star quarterback in Josh Allen to go along with a star wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, and a pretty solid defense all around. And ever since Josh Allen really got to cooking, this team has been one of the best teams in the entire NFL, yet they can never seem to get past the Kansas City Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals. And it's not like they're getting blown out in these games. It just so happens to be that every single time they face one of these teams, one play here or one play there changes the whole outcome of the game. Hell, on Sunday night, we were treated with a glorious matchup between the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs, where the Bills lost due to a missed field goal. And those sort of things just continue to follow the Buffalo Bills, and at this point, it is really unclear if this team will ever be able to reach that Super Bowl mark they'd so desperately want to hit. Again, with Josh Allen, they'll always have a chance, but it's getting a little bit more questionable every single day. Let us now move on to a more recently cursed franchise, the Dallas Cowboys. And I say recently more cursed because, of course, this is the same team that has won 5 NFL Super Bowl championships and have also won 10 NFC Conference championships. But as we all know, ever since 1995, which they won their last Super Bowl in, this team has failed to reach the conference championship ever since. Ever since Jimmy Johnson left, the curse of Jerry Jones has continued to stick around with this Dallas Cowboys team. It's almost as if Jerry Jones has sold his soul to get those 5 Super Bowl rings. Because despite making it to the NFL playoffs 13 times since 1995, 5, they have either lost in the wild card or the divisional round every single time. And I really believe this team has officially gotten cursed ever since 2014. We obviously know the Dez Bryant catch that happened in Green Bay, which, by the way, was a catch. But ever since that game, this team has been pretty solid. They were 13-3 in 2016, 10-6 in 2018, and then most recently 12-5 the past 3 seasons, but have yet to really do any damage in the playoffs. And this is all despite the fact that these Cowboys teams have had good quarterback play with Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. And whether you actually like the Dallas Cowboys or Dak Prescott and Tony Romo, you must admit that they have had good quarterback play ever since the years of Troy Aikman. And it's not like Dak Prescott or Tony Romo have had consistently bad teams. For the most part, they've actually had really good teams surrounding them. But it's just been inconsistent play from the defensive side of things, or inconsistent play from a player here or there, that has continued to stop this team from making the championship game that they want to reach so badly. So ever since really the 90s, this team has officially become cursed. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Vikings. And similar to the Buffalo Bills, this team has also made 4 Super Bowl appearances, but they have lost all 4. They were once the NFL Western Conference Championships all the way back in 1969, and they've also won 3 NFC Championships. Those were all between the years of 1969 and 1976, and ever since that day, they have not won an NFC Championship game. And this is despite the fact that this team has actually seen pretty decent success since the 1970s. At the end of the day, they've won 19 division championships and have made the playoffs 31 times. And with star quarterbacks like Frank Tarkenton, Warren Moon, Dante Culpepper, Brett Favre, and most recently, Kirk Cousins, this is a team that has not been able to reach the next step they so desperately want to hit. And most recently, this team has actually been pretty decent. Obviously, last year they were one of the best teams in the entire NFL, and this year, with the injuries to Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, they have kind of been falling off a little bit. And after a season where they went 7-10, they have a lot of questions to ask themselves. For starters, do they pay Justin Jefferson the big money or try to trade him to sort of rebuild your roster? There's also going to be questions about whether Kirk Cousins should be brought back as well. At the end of the day, the Kirk Cousins question is very interesting because they've only made the playoffs twice with him and have lost in the wild card round and the divisional round. And now that this team has actually built a pretty decent roster, there's going to be very interesting questions to ask if Kirk Cousins can genuinely lead this team to Super Bowls. Because when you compare him to the rest of the NFC, is he really considered a top tier quarterback within the conference? For example, is he better than Dak Prescott? No. Is he better than Jalen Hurts? No. Is he better than Jordan Love, the same quarterback in his division? It's questionable. Not to mention he's coming off a torn Achilles, so the questions are just starting to stack up. There were also rumors and reports that last year this team was trying to send everything in their back pocket to try to go get Anthony Richardson. Now I can't sit here and confirm nor deny that, but if that's the case, that really does tell you where this team wants to go with their quarterback position. And with a draft with a bunch of interesting quarterback names like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, it's going to get very interesting to see what this team decides to do at that quarterback position moving forward. Because this cursed franchise wants to break the curse and win a conference game and make it to a Super Bowl where they can finally get the job done. But until something actually does happen, we're just going to have to wait to see. Now before I get to my last team, I did want to mention a couple honorable mentions. And those honorable mentions are the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. Let's begin with the Lions. This is a team that has finally made it to the NFC Conference Championship game, and I think for the most part they are starting to break their curse. This is a team that is built to properly succeed for the next several years, so as long as they continue to succeed and potentially reach that championship game they so desperately want to hit, I think this team has broken their curse. Next is San Francisco, and I know this team was successful in the 90s, but ever since that day, it has been kind of on and off with the 49ers. We obviously know they've made the Super Bowl twice in the most recent years, but they have lost both of them. And recently, it seems like this team cannot stop getting injured at the wrong time. So that's why they're my honorable mentions. I don't think they're as cursed as other franchises, but I do think the injuries in the playoffs is sort of cursed behavior. But the last team we need to talk about, it is of course the Cleveland Browns. In my opinion, you really can't make a video talking about a cursed team without mentioning the Cleveland Browns. Ever since 1970 when they merged in the NFL, they have yet to win a conference championship game and have only won an AFC division championship 7 times, with their last one being in 1989. And since the 1970s, they've only made it to the playoffs 13 times. And to add a bit of a cherry on top, this team has just never been able to figure out their quarterback position. Ever since the 1999 season, they have had a different quarterback basically every season. I'm not going to give you guys the full list of names, but you can understand it's been several. Guys like Tim Couch, Charlie Fry, Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn, Colt McCoy, Brandon Weeden, Josh McCown, Baker Mayfield, and most recently, Deshaun Watson. And in most recent years, this team has been arguably the worst ran franchise in the entire NFL. We obviously all remember the Johnny Manziel pick, and then most recently, taking Baker Mayfield with the #1 overall pick. And of all the quarterbacks they've had recently, their 2 best quarterbacks were Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. And well, Baker Mayfield was traded for nothing, and Deshaun Watson is currently on IR. Now Now, what I will say about this team is that this team is heading in the right direction. I do think Deshaun Watson will continue to get better, and I do think this team as a whole will get better. And what makes this team even more cursed is the simple fact that this year was supposed to be the year where they were able to play good football. They were supposed to be able to contend for the AFC Championship game, but then Deshaun Watson got injured, Nick Chubb got injured, and basically their entire roster had injuries. And of course, we all know how it ended. It ended up with a blowout loss to the Houston Texans. Now I'm going to leave you guys off with a bit of a trivia question, and I want you guys to let me know in the comment section below your best guess as to who the right answer is. Which of their quarterbacks all time has the most amount of wins? I'll give you a hint, there's 2 of them. If you guys can get that, then you guys are probably true Cleveland Browns fans. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, as well as let me know in the comment section below what I should do next. But I love you guys. Peace.